No, there's not a parking problem. Those kids don't drive. Yes, there will be some teachers, but we've got plenty of room to park teachers. There's all sorts of areas that you could expand and put additional parking at Meridian High School. You could do it in the tennis courts that are on 23rd Avenue. You could do it at the lower end of the practice football field. You can park on the band field. Those are not realistic issues. The problem I have with Tony's group is that they do just like what Tony did a minute ago. He starts talking about an issue like consolidating city and county schools, which is not something we're addressing right now. We're talking about a bond issue that is very affordable to implement a plan that has been well thought out, and it needs to be done. As far as Mr. Peavy or anybody else, Tony, whoever it is, maybe well-intentioned, maybe not, but leadership is not about letting people like myself and these 60 other people and the school district itself that has put in 2 years worth of work coming up with a plan, and then so-called civic leaders show up and try to shoot holes in that plan after all the work's been done. Any of these guys could have been involved in these committees, and for whatever reason they chose not to be involved in it. But to come here after the fact when we've got a well thought out plan and try to shoot it down with suggestions that really don't make much sense, to me is not leadership.
Well, like I say, the issue about the combining city and county school offices, your question earlier was say, what would you do? I was going to kind of save that to the end, but since you asked the question, I said that's what I would do. I think it makes a lot of sense to combine the city and county superintendent offices to save money for the whole county, and then maybe a increase in your taxes would not be necessary. That was my thing. Now also, I respect Jim and I respect the 60 people the work that they did. I was interviewed and I offered my services. I was not asked to serve on any committee, and I think from talking with Mr. Peavy, he offered his services, was not asked to serve either.
No, he turned it down.
Okay. If he turned it down, that's fine. But I was not asked to serve on any committee, and I offered my services to do that after we interviewed that day. And but I do feel like that there are some alternative proposals to this, and some of the things that the committees have done. They went to Chattanooga, they went to somewhere in Georgia talking about the small learning groups, and quite frankly, I have not talked to a single person that is against the small learning communities. Everybody knows the more one-on-one time you have with a teacher, the better you're going to learn, the more you're going to retain, and that's what it's all about. And nobody's against that. The thing that I see the people being against is strictly the 9th grade building going to the high school. And Jim, I think he played right into one of my arguments here, is the reason they're putting the school over there and the reason they're so animate about it is the test scores. Trying to bring the 9th grade T&G kids over there to raise the test scores for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And I really feel like that's a mistake. That if we're doing it just to put a Band-Aid just to say, okay, now we have a level 3 school, what are we doing with the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders? Also, I did some homework last week. I actually called, everybody's talking about Tupelo. They passed some bond issues and this type thing. I happen to be a personal friend of the mayor of Tupelo. Gave him a call last week and I asked him about, number one, why did y'all pass these bond issues? And they said, quite frankly, we're busting at the seams. We didn't have enough class space to educate the children that we had in the county or the city. And I said, well, let me ask you this. Has the test scores improved now that you have new buildings? Well, no, not really. Well, test scores hadn't improved. And the big issue, I said, let me ask you this. What is your dropout rate now that you have the 9th grade with the high school? He said it's approaching 40%. So there's a case in point right here locally where the 9th grade being new buildings, 9th grade being on the campus of the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade has not improved the dropout rate at all.
We all know who the supporters of the bond issue are, but we don't know who the organized opposition is. Is it important that we know who these people are, and why don't we know who they are?
That's a great question. And that's a question I was going to get to. I'm glad you got to it. I'd like to know who the people are that are supporting this. It's a matter of public record in a political campaign, but I'd like to hear Tony say who these people are. I think the community would find it interesting to know who in this community values voting down a school bond issue, especially when they do it with the kind of advertising that they do. So, Tony, if you want to address that, go ahead.
Be glad to. When I was called by a group of businessmen, we met, and it was as you know, this is a very divisive issue when you're talking about children and school bonds, and if you're not for it, you're against the children, and that's simply not the case. Most of these men are retail people that have retail businesses in the city of Meridian, and they wish to remain anonymous simply because people won't shop at their stores or go to their business because they say they're against the school bond issue. You know, I'm not going to be able to vote, and it's not going to affect me one way or the other how the vote goes, but
it, you know, as we were talking earlier, I think it will affect everybody in this community.
It's going to.
yeah. Well, like I say, Jim, a lot of the issue is strictly where the building's going, and
I don't understand the problem with that. What is the problem with putting the building on the ninth grade on the main campus?
I feel like that maybe we ought to just add on to the existing high school.
Where are you going to do it?
I mean, that's just some of the
That's
ideas.
just
That's just some of the ideas.
It's not a valid one. We've already looked at that. You can't go higher on any. What are we going? Where are you going to add on to our existing buildings? Where is the space to do that? It's not there, Tony. I mean, it's just not there.